Hello guys, welcome to a new video. Today I am going to be actually showing you how to set up my UI. So just like you see on my screen, you're gonna be able to have just exactly that with basically the links that I'm gonna give you in the description. So this UI setup guide is only going to be for Holy Paladin. I'm not gonna include anything else for any other spec for Paladin, nor any other class, although you can pretty easily just apply the same things that I'll show in this video to any other given class or spec with the right set of WeakAuras. So I am going to be providing you with a list of every other add-on that I use, as well as WeakAuras of course, so that you can go ahead and just get everything really easily. And I'll be giving you links to every single thing that you might want to import into your UI down there in the description. So yep, let's get right into it. Alright, so this thing right here is the list of all the add-ons that I have that I usually are part of my UI. Now there is some that are not exactly part of only the combat scenarios that I mentioned before, but whatever, might as well add them in there. I actually had people asking me to compile some sort of list like this, so if you want to know all the add-ons that I do use, here they are. Go ahead and get them. Now, the most visually noticeable part of my UI, besides the ray frames, it's going to be ElvUI, of course. Now, get ElvUI is going to be really easy. You just gotta download that add-on in WoW app. You can just go ahead and do that with WoW app, and you don't even have to go to the internet. Not the internet, I mean a browser. But if you don't have WoW app, you can do it manually by going to ElvUI and just getting the actual files manually. But if you are familiar with ElvUI already and you already have it installed, it's going to be just as simple as going down here to profiles, and then you go to import profile and you paste the string that I gave you in the link down there in the description. Now once you've done that, you're gonna have pretty much the same as I have right here in terms of what's strictly ElvUI. Now you'll know that farther down the line in this video you'll see that some of the things that you see here are not exactly ElvUI, but we'll see about that later. So things that I want to point out about ElvUI, of course, in my profile you don't see the bars right here, they are hidden. Some of those bars are right up here and some of them here right there on the right. There is also no bag icon, so if you want to show that, you are going to have to tweak it on the options, or just use your keyboard and press the key B. Now, if you want to use other nameplates, because I am using ElvUI default nameplates, you might want to use player nameplates. You can do that very easily. Just go ahead and click enable here so you disable it, and therefore you'll see it. You basically won't see the nameplates until you use a different add-on. That is going to be as easy as it is. Then if you actually want to use ElvUI rate frames for whatever reason instead of the frames that I'm going to be using, I'm not using ElvUI rate frames. I repeat, I'm not using ElvUI rate frames. I'm using Grid 2, and you will talk about right after. If you actually want to use ElvUI for whatever reason, just go ahead here, unit frames, group units, raid, or even raid 40 and party as well, and then you click on enable, and that will basically show the basic ElvUI frames, because I don't really have anything set up, at least not something that I've tweaked any recently. Now, of course, as I said before, there is my raid frames as well. Now, that's probably the second most important part of any UI, especially for a healer. So I'm using Grid 2 raid frames, and especially, or in particularly, I am using somebody else's profile. This somebody else is called Holy Paladin. I don't even know how to pronounce that name, but whatever. I took this profile from this person a long time ago, and ever since then I've been tweaking upon it, since there's stuff that you might want to add to the debuff ignore list and such. So anyway, if you just want to be using the same raid frames that I usually use in my gameplay, you can see them right here in this video. And if you just want to use something exactly like this, because it's pretty much just going to be exactly like you are seeing it right there, the only thing you're going to have to do is import the link right here. You go to profiles, you click import, and then you go to import profile, and of course you paste the import string that I'm going to give you in the description. Now once that is done, there's going to be a couple things that you are going to want to know. The first thing is, how do you actually add debuffs to the ignore list? So let's say you don't want to see some debuffs for whatever reason. There is always, on different fights, debuffs that are pointless to be tracking in your frames because they are just visual clutter. There's nothing you can do about them. There's probably just rate damage debuffs that are always going to be there throughout the course of the fight. So if you don't want to see those to avoid the visual clutter, you are gonna want to go to statuses right here, go down there to debuffs, and then you open that up, and then you go here to ignored debuffs. Now down here you are gonna want to go to blacklist, and then you go down here, you add one line jump, and then you type in whatever spell name you want to ignore. It's that easy. All of these are already spells that are being ignored. If you want to add another one, you just add a line, add the spell name, click accept, and then never click on this actual cross icon, because that's not gonna close the window, that's gonna delete the entire list. So go ahead, don't ever do that. It's a pretty common thing to do, I believe, because it looks like the usual cross to close a tab in Windows. Just don't do that. Now it's probably also worth knowing that the way you tweak the place where the frames are going to be displayed is right here in general and then layouts. So if you want to, for whatever reason, move things around, you are going to want to go to layouts and then by group type, and then you click on one of those magnifying lamps or whatever they're called, and then you get this little thing right here that's basically going to display where those frames will be displayed whenever you're actually in the correct environment. So I usually don't have any frames displayed when I'm solo, but I do have things set up for party, and I also have stuff set up on this other tab right here by raid size. So what I did is I customized some of the actual frames so that they actually fit the screen. So for example, for 30 man I did reduce the height of the frame so that it fits the screen. Right here you can see for 30 man it looks slightly smaller than for the normal frames. Usually they are a bit longer. That's basically how it looks for 5 man, and for a 20 man raid scenario it could be looking something like this. Now if you want to change that, you can go ahead and do it right here in the editor tab. You can go ahead and add any other sort of layouts that you might want to, and then you can go ahead and add them here by clicking add and then just choosing what kind of size or raid size you want to be using that layout for, and then you tweak the frame height or width with these different sliders. So I have a different setup for 40 man just for the sake of everything fitting the screen. And it's just as easy as tweaking those things right here. The location is always gonna just be changed by moving things with the magnifying lamp right here. And that's pretty much it for grid 2. I actually forgot to put it away, but yeah, you gotta do that like that. If you forget to actually remove that and then you go ahead and close grid accidentally, you then just got to go back to grid, and then you just click the magnifying lamp again and it will go away. By the way you get to the grid add-on is by typing //grid2, and then you get to the add-on that way. What else to talk about? Of course, WeakAuras. Now the WeakAuras that you're seeing right there, as usual in my screen, are all part of this pack right here. It's called Shadowlands Paladin. Now this is a group that contains a lot of individual WeakAuras, so if you ever want to create a WeakAura for any spell that's not included in this list, you can do so by duplicating one of the WeakAuras that you think that has the behavior that you want to replicate with the different spell. You duplicate that and then you change the triggers and the conditions. I'm not gonna go ahead and explain how to do that, because explaining how to set up WeakAuras is another subject entirely. But if you just want to get the WeakAuras that I usually have right there as like my usual Paladin display UI, you just gotta import the link that I'll give you in the description. You go ahead and click import and you paste that right there, and you shall get what I am seeing right now as I close it. So you should be seeing this thing right here in the middle. Now that is not entirely true. I lied to you right now. That is because my Holy Power bar is an entirely separate WeakAura, and that is because I actually took it from somebody else. But that will also be down there in the description, so you only got to import it and it should be looking just like it is displaying right now. Anything else to point out? I also got a lot of other WeakAuras that are important in a combat scenario. The most noticeable one, I think, it's going to be their ability timeline. Now, in order to actually showcase how this looks, I will put the video again, but right here to the left, you will see those abilities are actually counting down. So what this WeakAuras is doing is it is taking the what is it called, the BigWigs bars that are usually displayed on your screen, and it is making them go through this little timeline right there. So instead of seeing a lot of bars on your screen, you will only see this one single bar here with the spell names and what time it takes for them to actually happen in the fight. So I really like this WeakAuras. I think it's really compact, it looks really nice. And getting that one set up, it's gonna be just as easy as actually importing it into WeakAuras. I'm gonna give you the link down in the description, of course, just like with everything else. Another WeakAuras that's probably pretty useful for a lot of people is going to be the potions, and well, in this case it says racial, but I'm not tracking any racials down here. This WeakAuras is only going to be displaying my heartstones and my potions, my mana pot, my Kyrian potion if you happen to be Kyrian, and of course the health pots as well. This one is pretty much standalone. You just gotta import it and put it whatever you want as well. Other noticeable WeakAuras, I got the combat timer, of course. I got one for healer mana that's gonna be displaying how much mana do the rest of the healers, and of course yourself as well, have whenever you are in a raid environment. That can be somehow useful. I also have this WeakAuras that's called Raid CDs that will be displaying who uses a cooldown while in a raid environment. That can be pretty helpful and pretty useful whenever you are either pugging content or whatever you just want to see when people pop their stuff, instead of using Exorsus maybe, because I do use Exorsus, but it's a bit too far on the left of my screen. It is nice, but whenever you are in the action, sometimes you just want to see it right up there. One thing I forgot to point out is it's my racial icon right here. I actually don't use a WeakAuras for that. It's TellMeWhen, I don't know what they're called, but this icon is a standalone thing. If you want something like it, you can go ahead and create a WeakAuras for it, or just import a WeakAuras from Wago. I'm pretty sure there's going to be a lot, but it's pretty simple. It's just a basic cooldown tracking icon right there. Now, in terms of my trinkets, I do have separate WeakAuras for those. They're called Trinket 1 and Trinket 2, but I'll also include those in the description, sure. Those are outside of the group because I've been using them quite before I had my actual big WeakAuras group that you see on screen regularly. And yeah, I think that's pretty much all about my usual WeakAuras. Alright, so I realized that I was not actually tracking my cursor in the previous recording, so I'm just redoing this part right here. So now I'm gonna be explaining how to set up these two WeakAuras that are the interrupt tracker and the cooldown tracker that you see only in dungeon environments. So these WeakAuras are called, of course, interrupt tracker. It's a pretty simple WeakAuras to set up because you don't have to set up anything, you just import it and drop it wherever. But you are going to need something else before you can do that, which is called Send Tracker. So this other WeakAuras is basically the core under which some WeakAuras work, because it's apparently just a pretty complex WeakAuras. I have no idea how it is coded, but you need to have Send Tracker in order to be able to have these two WeakAuras running. Those WeakAuras being the interrupt tracker and the cooldown tracker. So both the Send Tracker and the interrupt tracker, you don't have to set up anything about them, you just drop them in there. Maybe you can just go ahead and drag the interrupt tracker to whatever you want it to be displayed. But the actual cooldown tracker though, you do have to make some tweaks if you want to change anything about it. If you don't really like how it looks on my screen, if you have a different setup because maybe you are using different frames, or maybe you want to track different cooldowns. So in order to be doing that, you're gonna want to go to custom options whenever you actually click on the WeakAuras. So if you want the icons to be displayed in a different direction in regards to the frame, you just go ahead and do that here in grow direction. So if you don't want them to go downwards like it is doing in my case, like in the video, if you want them to be growing sideways, upwards, whatever, you just change it on that option right there in grow direction. Now, in order to choose what spells are going to be displayed, you go ahead and do that in the tab by spell. So there's different categories of spells. Each of these categories includes all of the spells that belong to that category. So if you want to be tracking different sets of spells, you just go ahead and then click on them like that. It's pretty simple. if you are using the link that I'm going to be providing, you are already going to have this set up for you, just like it looks in my case in my UI pretty much. In terms of where you want these spells to be displayed in regards to the different rows, you can do that here in by type. So this allows you to choose where you want different kinds of spells to be displayed. You might not want all the spells to be shown in the same row, so you can do that by, you can split what the different kinds of spells are going to be showing on. So let's say you don't want them all to be in the same row, you just go ahead and change what row the kinds are being shown on. Or you might just want to show, for example, all the immunities in row 1, or all the personals in row 2, all the offensives in row 3. So you can just go ahead and do that by choosing what row you want those things to be displayed on. By the way, the rows are basically just this. So let's say this is row 1, this icon right here, this should be row 2, and then this third one will be row 3 in the case of the growth towards the bottom of the frame. Yeah, that's about it with those WeakAuras. Now, I forgot to mention in the previous recording as well about my details profile. Now, my details profile is nothing special, it's just the baseline details, but of course I've got a different size and a different setup, like the place where it's set up. So if for whatever reason you just want to go ahead and copy mine, I'll give you the link down there in the description. Of course, it's just as easy as going down here, click on profiles, click on import profile, and then just paste the string right here. It's pretty simple. And yeah, that's pretty much it with the add-ons that I want to be talking about. Now, I got a lot of other stuff, so if you want me to talk about anything else that I might have forgotten on this video, just go ahead and let me know in the comments. I'll be including all the links down there as well as my links to my socials, my Twitch channel, and whatever else that I might feel like. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. Again, if you have anything you want to actually ask me, just go ahead and do it in the comments. And yep, see you next time on another video, or maybe on Twitch. Bye bye.